Hello and welcome to this chess tactics video, and today I have more puzzles for you to solve. But quickly, I would like to thank all viewers and subscribers for helping this channel reach 300 subscribers in a little bit less than 3 months. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's start with these chess puzzles. This first one, it is black's turn to move here. So what should black do in this position? And as always, if you need more time to think, just pause the video. If not, let's take a look at what black should do in this position. It looks like the material is even. Let's see here. Yes, even material. They both have 7 pawns, 4 minor pieces, rooks, queen. So material is even, but black has a move that will give him an advantage here. So what do you think that is? Let's take a look. All right, evaluation. It is in black's favor. And here we go. So knight takes d4. And now can you see why this move would be giving black an advantage? If the queen were to just capture here, well then we would have knight to g4 check, and after a capture of that knight, the queen would be captured here. And then that would leave black with an almost +5, or close to +5 advantage. So this should be winning enough, or enough of a advantage for black to win this position from here. And if we go back and just take one quick look at that, after knight takes d4, looks like the computer recommends the best move as just developing this bishop to attack the knight, but then the knight would just be able to retreat, and black would just have an advantage there with that extra piece. All right, well, I hope you were able to find that one. So let's move on to the next one. I have 5 total problems today, so 5 puzzles for you to do. Let's look at the second one. All right. So number 2 is also black to move. So let me flip this board. All right. So in this position, black to move. And I would like to thank the viewer who mentioned that I should flip the board around like this when it's black's turn to move. I'm sorry if that confused some of you when I did not do that. Okay, black's turn to move. What do you think he should do here to obtain a winning advantage? Let's see here. And what does the material look like? It looks like black is ahead by a pawn. But if you need more time to think, pause the video. If not, let's take a look at the answer. So the issue here is that this king is in a spot where the queen can give check, and then that will cause problems. So let's look at the evaluation here. So white has neglected king safety, something you should always keep a lookout for, your king safety and your opponent's. So queen to c1 starts this little combination here. And now the king is forced to move to h2. But then we have queen to f4 here. And then this will cause problems. The best move recommended here is king to h1. But then we have queen to f1 check and picking off the rook. Now the problem with any other move is that this knight can give check, and then the queen can be picked off. So first we'll take a look at the best move recommended by the computer. king to h1, but then that results in actually, let me take a look at something here. The computer prefers queen to c1 check, but then it goes back to the main line, which is queen to f1 check. The king will go up to h2 here, and then this rook will be picked off. And then after queen takes e5, now we see that black has about a 4.5 point advantage here. So the equivalent of 4.5 pawns. And how might the game continue? Well, the computer recommends queen to e3 here. And then, let's see, what do we have next? Queen to d5. So black has this pawn that can start trying to march up the board. The queen can't capture this pawn immediately or the bishop will be captured. So anyway, in this position, black has a pretty sizable advantage. You know, the rook is stronger than this bishop, and black's king is pretty safe here, and white's still has some threats by this queen to check this king. And if we go back to the beginning of this puzzle and take a quick look at one of the other options here. So after queen to c1, the king has to retreat, and then this check. Some other possibilities, let's say this block was tried. Well, then we just have knight to g4 or f3, and then after that, let's say capture, and the queen would fall. And so then this would be an even more winning advantage for black. All right, well, I hope you figured that out. It was a little complicated. And let me know if these puzzles are too strong or too hard for most of you, or not hard enough. Leave comments and suggestions on what you would like to see, if the puzzles need to be a little bit harder or not, or easier. And if you're just starting out with tactics, I would recommend that you start with easier problems just to get those patterns down in your memory. All right, let's take a look at the third puzzle here. Let's see. All right, and so in this position, we have white to move. The material appears to be even. Let's see, 5 pawns to 5 pawns, 2 minor pieces each, and rooks and queen even. So even material. White's turn to move. And this one is a little trickier. So how does white gain the winning advantage here? So take a look at this position, see if you can figure it out. And if you need more time, just pause the video. All right, let's take a look here. So the evaluation says white is definitely winning. A mate in 4. All right, so there's a mate in 4, and there's also a mate in 7. But it looks like knight takes b5 is the best move, and this might have been hard to find this move. Most people would want to check with the rook maybe immediately and chase the king. But we see here with this move, knight takes b5, and then after the pawn would capture, because if the pawn doesn't capture, well, then we have a mate coming here on the next move. And so, the pawn would be forced to capture. And what this does is it moved that knight out of the way, so the queen is protecting this pawn, this knight right here. And it also allows the queen to move up here to c5 and cut off the escape of the black king. So then we would have queen to c5 here, cutting off any escape. And then the computer says knight to c6 would be the best way to delay the mate. But then after queen to d6 here, we have queen to c7 and rook to a8. So that was a little tricky, but it had a good theme in it that revolved around, instead of just giving check right away, before you do that, take a quick look to see, once you give check, where can the king run to? Because a lot of times, especially beginners, they'll want to just check the king any chance they get. But sometimes you could chase the king away into a fortified position where you won't be able to get to him. So it might be good to make a move first, like this knight move, that helps cut off any escape that the king might have. So now the knight move allowed this pawn to be removed out of the way. So when the queen comes up here, it cuts off this c7 square, which may have allowed the king to try and run away across the board here. So I hope you were able to figure that out. But if not, just take another look at it, and hopefully the lesson that you learned is don't always check immediately. Try and take a look and see if the king will be able to escape. And if there are escape squares, see if you can find a way to cut off those escape squares. And then it might allow you to mate the king. All right, let's move on to problem number 4 here. Okay. All right, once again, it's white's turn to move. And this is another tricky one here. So take a look at it, see what you think. How can white get a winning attack here? Check it out. And if you need more time, pause the video. But let's look at it here. Black is ahead in material. So white must do something to try and gain an advantage. And he must hurry, otherwise black will be able to fortify his king's position. So that is something that we notice here. All of black's pieces are kind of in the center or on the queen side here. And on the king side, we have, well, the bishop is aimed at the king side. We have 2 pawns, a queen, 2 rooks. So white has more of an attack force here aimed at this king. Now black does have the 2 knights defending and these pawns, but we'll see how white will be able to break through this protective pawn cover here. All right, let's take a look. So white is winning in this position, and it looks like this is kind of complicated. The best move is G takes F6 here. And then we have a mate in 6, or even quicker, depending on how black responds. So it looks like knight takes G6 would be the best move here. But then after this, H takes G6 with check by the rook. So this discovered check forces the king to G8. But then we have a tricky move here. And it looks like the only one that leads to immediate mate. Rook to H8 check. And this pulls the king back to the corner here. And then after F7, this pawn move cuts off the black king's escape. And then there's a threat of mate in 1 here with rook to H1. And so it looks like the computer recommends knight to F6, or what else here? E5. But these moves just delay the inevitable here. So Take your pick. E5 would just let the bishop come out and block, but then it would be captured. Knight to f6 is what the computer recommends, but then after rook to h1, we have bishop blocking, but this just delays everything. And then the knight can move to h7 or h5. But then we just have the rook here checking and delivering mate. All right, so that was a little more complicated. If you found that, congratulations. I hope you were able to figure that out, but it was a little tricky. So just let me know if I need to do easier puzzles in future videos, or if you want some, even harder ones. But anyway, just let me know, and let's take a look at the final problem here, which is black to move. All right. So in this position, let me flip the board around. Black to move in this position. So what should black do? And if we look at this, black is behind in material. So white is definitely winning material-wise. So what can black do in this position? Take a look at it. Pause the video if you need more time. All right, let's take a look here. Now, I'll give you a hint. Sometimes in a position where you're behind and losing, sometimes you have to look for a way to get a draw, either by a stalemate or repeating the position on the board 3 times. You have to do something to try and escape from a loss. All right, so let's see what black did here. So it is a draw in this position, but how does black achieve this? All right, well, queen to e1 is the first move. So hopefully you found this. It may be a little tricky because you're giving up a rook, but since this is the only move, this pawn cuts off the king's escape here, and because that's the only move the king can make, then we have queen to h4. Now, if the king were to go back to d3, then we just have queen to e1 again, and that would once again force the king to come back to f4. So, after another check on h4, the king doesn't want to go back to e3, or we would just repeat the position 3 times and it would be a draw. So let's say the king moves forward up the board here. Where can he go? Well, if he goes here, we have queen to h5. Now, I just want to take a quick look. Yes, all right, queen to h5, checking the king, and the pawn cuts off any escape down through here, and the king would be forced to move forward. If the king moved back to f4, we would just check again, but if the king moves up the board, well, then we have queen to e8, cutting the king off from trying to swing over on this side of the board. So the king would have to just step back, and then another check, and black could just repeat this, chasing the king back and forth, and white would make no progress. All right, well, I hope you were able to find that. Again, another tricky problem. So just let me know if these problems, if you want more of the same, or if you want easier problems, or a mix. And also, I would like to once again thank all viewers and subscribers for helping support this channel and helping me reach 300 subscribers in less than 3 months. So the channel is continuing to grow. Thank all of you. And if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.